You have to get Prabhupada's. There you go. And I found something beautiful to read. And I think it couldn't be anything more perfect to read than this about this topic. It's from a book called A Place of Sandalwood and Roses. And wherever Prabhupada went, there were sandalwood and roses. You like roses and sandalwood on the forehead? Cools you off. So they always put sandalwood on Prabhupada's forehead. And this book is by a devotee named Govinda Dasi. Some of you may know her. Govinda Dasi was Prabhupada's personal secretary, along with her husband, in 1967. And I believe 68, 69, they opened the first temple. She and her husband opened the first temples in Hawaii. And so she has written a book of her memories. And there's a section in the book. It's 1967. As you know, Prabhupada came in 1965. In 1967, he was ill. He had a stroke. He wanted to go back to India. The weather was better. He preferred Ayurvedic medicine. But he told them, either I will go back and get better, or I will go back and die. So could you imagine, your life has been totally transformed by Srila Prabhupada. You've been, maybe you've known him like a month or two or a year, maximum 2. You're a totally different person. You're totally dependent on him for guidance, for inspiration. He is the personification of Krishna Bhakti. And now he's leaving and he's saying, I may not come back. Okay, can you imagine? The movement's 2 years old. So maybe at that time, maybe, I don't know, 100 devotees in the whole world, all in America and Canada. And he's going back to India and he may not return. So as you could imagine, there were these intense feelings of separation. My guru is leaving, I may never see him again. The person who has changed my life, who I'm so dependent upon for everything, who is my prana dana, my wealth, the air of my life. He's going and he may never return. Radhika Priti, Asta Sakti, where are you? We're trying to hold the phone. Where are you?
We're traveling for New Vrindavan. We're on a bus right now.
Oh, that's why it's shaking. Okay.
Yeah.
On the way to New Vrindavan. Wow.
Show Gopi.
Okay.
Oh, there's Gopi here also.
So, Adibo, Gopi. So, and the Gainesville crew is on the way to New Vrindavan. The school semester ended, so they're liberated for a few weeks. They distribute prasad. They help distribute prasadam on the campus. So school has just gone on vacation, so they're also going on vacation. So, as you can imagine, let me see. There's a picture here. I can show you. It's quite a. See if I can find the picture. Yeah, this is Prabhupada leaving. Maybe some of you have seen this picture. This is, I don't know if you can, if it's in focus or what. This is Prabhupada at the airport. This is a small group of original devotees in the Hare Krishna movement. Everyone is collapsing, crying, breaking down, just in a state of shock because Prabhupada's leaving and they don't know if he's going to come back. So this gives Prabhupada an opportunity to speak about separation from the Guru. So I will just read this chapter, and in reading it, I will comment on it. This is so beautiful. I think this is maybe the best. You may want to take notes if you can, or revisit this lecture. I think this might be the best class on separation from the Guru because it's actually happening and Prabhupada is guiding his disciples. So I'll read a little bit which explains the background information, a little more background information. Travel arrangements are being finalized. So I believe Prabhupada is in San Francisco now. The Swami, Prabhupada was known as the Swami in those days, will fly to New York for a few days and then fly to India. This is July 22nd. This should be 1967. Where were you? July 22nd, 1967. Maybe you were here. Maybe that's you in the picture. Who knows? July 1967, July 22nd. Yeah. I was at the beach that day, for sure. Air India will take him to New Delhi, and from there he will travel 3 hours to Vrindavan. Govinda Dasi is writing the book, but she's writing in the third person, so she doesn't write it as I. She reports on it as if she's just another character, another person. It's a third person. So you mention your name in the book as if you're not the author, as if someone else is the author. Govinda Dasi hears this news and feels helpless. Tears stream down her cheeks and she cries. Swamiji is going to leave us. How will we survive? Will he ever come back? No one knows for sure what the future holds. No one knows if he will ever return. And there's nothing that can be done. Hare Krishna. I mean, if your spiritual master is going to Vrindavan to die, as Kadamba Kanada Swami did, you can kind of prepare yourself. This is, I think, more difficult because you don't know. And he's not inviting anyone to come to India, so you don't know if you'll ever see him again. Yeah. Wait a minute. Okay. The Swami has stated, I will return to Vrindavan. Either I shall regain my health or I shall die in Vrindavan. That is my final decision. So the journey begins. It looks like Govinda Dasi has found it. Yeah? Where? So this is, I guess, online somewhere. No? She's got special Shakti. She just thinks, let's get the book, and the book appears. Anyway, if you go to the chat, are you posting, or is it transcribing what I'm saying, or what? Anyway, we don't have to know, but it's there. Somehow or other. AI or whatever. It might be on Govinda Dasi's website, this story. Swamiji returns to New York, but only for a short time. His spiritual children crowd around him, savoring every moment of his presence. They try to hold him in their minds and hearts, knowing soon that they will have only this memory to cherish. The fateful day comes. Swamiji sits in the boarding area of Air India at the New York International Airport. His disciples sit surrounding him, straining for every last word, every last glimpse of him. So if you want to copy these instructions that are in the chat, you could copy them. Tears cloud, okay. Govinda Dasi sits on the floor nearby. Tears cloud her vision, and she brushes them aside. She is determined not to cry, as she does not want to miss even one moment with Swamiji still in her vision. As if she cries, and she's not going to see him and not be able to hear him properly. Himavati, who has come from Montreal to see Swamiji off, is sitting nearby. She's wearing a gold striped sari with a black and gold embroidered border. So if you look at the picture, you see the woman in the sari? That's Himavati. So it wasn't, maybe it wasn't that common that women would wear saris then. I'm not sure. A gold striped sari with a gold embroidered border. Swamiji admires her striking appearance, telling her she looks very beautiful, wrapped in an Indian sari. Himavati glows with love and appreciation. On the Air India wall, there are paintings of Indian ladies carrying water pots on their heads. The Swamiji points to them, saying, "Just see how lovely they look. They're carrying water pots on the head, just like the gopis. The gopis carry pots of yogurt and butter. How graceful they look, just like gopis." So this is interesting. For a pure devotee, everything reminds the pure devotee of Krishna. So if he sees, in Indian villages still today, you'll see this, there's one well in the whole village, and the women come with pots, fill the pots up, and then they walk back with the pots in their heads. That's the easiest way to carry them. You'll also see at train stations, if you hire someone to carry your luggage, they'll put the luggage on their heads. A little small, thin, even small, thin. I don't even want to call them men because they don't really look like men. Scrawny, you know the word scrawny? Like thin little guys. And then they carry like 3 or 4 suitcases and they walk up stairs and it's all on their head. So that's how they carry. So Prabhupada is seeing the pictures, and because he's a pure devotee, it reminds him of gopis of Vrindavan, naturally, right? Oh, right? So, oh, these are ordinary village women, but this is what the gopis do. They're cowherd girls. They transport butter and yogurt and pots on their head, ghee, like that. Yeah. Swamiji obviously misses his native India, especially Vrindavan. Clearly, he is looking forward to returning to the holy land of Braja. But he is concerned about his many new spiritual children. He wants to take them all with him to Vrindavan. And he expresses this. But it's not yet time. Prabhupada definitely wanted us to spend time in India. Especially, he wanted to establish a place in Vrindavan. He was going to call it the American house because at that time, all his disciples were American. And there was so much Prabhupada wanted to teach us that we would just learn by being in India. I've told this story before. I'll tell it again. It's a beautiful story. So I was teaching in an institute in India. It's called the Vrindavan Institute of Higher Education. And I taught for a month, about 30 devotees. They were in a program, a Bhakti Shastri program, but they take a break from the Bhakti Shastri and then they attend another program that goes on every month or it used to, every month in Vrindavan during Kartik. So I taught a class there. Then after the class, I wanted to buy a harmonium and one of my students had a harmonium. And so I was in his room and looking at it and then we worked out a price. And some other students were there. And among those other students was the oldest. He was probably in his 70s at that time. I was 46. So if you're 46, anyone over 60 is pretty old. So I actually don't know how old he was. Maybe he was younger than I am now, but he seemed to be in his late 60s, which was over 20 years older than I was at the time. And so he came up to me and he said, I'll buy it for you. I said, oh, thank you. That was very nice of you. And so the person in charge of the school was a friend of mine, and I told him, I said, this is what happened. This man was, of course, like 40 years older than everybody else, or 50 years older than all the other students were young. And then the devotee in charge of the school, he said, yeah, this is culture. Because you were his teacher, therefore he accepts you as a guru, at least for that time. And so you know, the tradition in India is when you have a teacher, you give them what is called dakshina. Dakshina is a gift. It's usually a gift of money. You can give other things. That's the tradition. The teachers never charge for their services, but the students would support them. So he said, well, you were his teacher, so it's natural. That's culture. And then I had remembered that Prabhupada said, I want my disciples to go to India so they can learn culture. And so then, yeah, okay, I just learned something cultural there, you know, not necessarily from the point of a teacher, but just from the point of, I was looking at it more. If I'm a student, then I'm hearing from my teacher, I should respect my teacher the way this person respected me. Not just if he's my guru, but he's the teacher. And we learn so many things about culture, but specifically, as I was saying when I was in Chile, it's not just Indian culture, because Indian culture could be British culture, it could be Muslim culture, it could be mixed with previous cultures, but Brahminical culture, more, I would say, Vaishnava culture. So, yeah, so Prabhupada wanted his disciples to go to India to learn that culture There's another story. Yeah, let me tell a few stories here. I've told this story before, but unless you have perfect memory, I think it's important I tell the stories at least 3 times. Because when I tell a story that you know, you remember that you forgot it, right? Sometimes, isn't it? This is a very beautiful story. So the devotees, originally there were a group of devotees Prabhupada asked to go to India. This was the first group of Western devotees that ever had gone to India. And they were staying at the home of a man who was, I'm not sure his background, but from what I could gather, he was wealthy enough to have a large enough house to house like 12 devotees or 15, whatever the number was, even 10, even 7, you have to have a fairly large house. So apparently he was fairly well off. And he was taking care of the devotees, feeding them, cooking 2-3 meals a day, cleaning their clothes, cleaning the rooms, and on and so forth. And so and the devotees were very young and very American, and that's a synonym for rude. Young Americans can be rude, like we know it all. People, I'm saying Americans from the United States, like we know everything. We're 20 years old and we know everything. Of course, when you're 20, you know everything, right? When you're 28, you realize you don't know everything. So they were a bit rude. Maybe rude's not the best word, just unrefined. Yeah, that's maybe a more polite word. Not so refined, at least not by Indian standards. There was a devotee who did a joke. He said, this is how a Britisher uses a napkin. And he goes like this. This is how American uses a napkin. He goes like this. This is how a Trinidadian uses a napkin. He takes it, puts it in his pocket, and wipes on his sleeve. Steals the napkin and wipes it on his. So, different cultures. So we should say they weren't as refined as their guests. Their guests were, we could say, refined people from a very, perhaps maybe aristocratic family. Anyway, they serve the devotees very, very well. The devotees, in a sense, maybe weren't as respectful as they should have been and as kind and sweet. That's the impression I get. I don't know, but that's the impression I get. So on the last day they were leaving after I believe after they had eaten, or the man said to the devotees, "Thank you for staying here. And if I have committed any offenses to you, please forgive me." He was serving them hand and foot, and he's saying, if I've committed any offenses to you, you are my guest in my home. I want to make sure you're happy. And then after the man said that, then Prabhupada said to the devotees, he was kind of, I don't know if he said, look at this, but he just said to the devotees, this is Vaishnava. The man was actually crying, if I've committed any offenses. He was serving them like kind of like just a menial servant. Whatever they needed, he did. And he's asking, if I've committed any offenses, please forgive me. And Prabhupada said, this is Vaishnava. So these are little things you learn when you go to India. I'll tell you a few stories. I think it's helpful to learn these little things because we are part of a spiritual culture, and these little things help us in our advancement. How to serve Vaishnavas and how always to ask for forgiveness if I've done anything wrong like that. It's just part of the culture. It's nice. It breeds humility. So there was another time some Indian gentleman had met Prabhupada. He often meets people. We call it darshan. Darshan means to see. So you come and you meet the spiritual master. He speaks to you. You speak to him. And whenever people would meet Prabhupada, Prabhupada always made sure that they would get prasadam. And sometimes they'd even have debates. Prabhupada would debate with people. They disagreed with him. Sometimes the debates would get a little heated. Voices would raise. And then Prabhupada would kind of end it like a game. You know, it's like, okay, game's over. Give him prasadam and then light talk. That happened. That happened many times, I think. Always prasadam. So Prabhupada was giving some guests prasadam, and they took the prasadam. Firstly, I have to demonstrate this, so I have to put the book down. Generally, the principle is you accept things with your right hand, although this must look like my left hand to you, right? Anyway, this is my right hand. You accept things in Indian culture, the left hand is used for dirty things, for using, like when you evacuate and you wash yourself, you use the left hand, etc. Abhinav knows. I don't know what else you use left hand. I don't know. But you don't, when it's considered improper, when you're giving or taking, to do it with your left hand is always, the right hand is considered. But just say, I guess Abhinav, we could say it's auspicious, right? In left hand, to give and take is inauspicious. Something like that, perhaps. But sometimes we'll put both hands out like this, which means I'm accepting something fully, not just with one hand, but I'm fully accepting. So if you're in India, you'll see often when you give someone prasadam, they'll put out both hands like this, like I'm fully accepting, right? So the man put out, I mean, those of you who are Indian, you already know all this. Well, maybe you don't. But anyway, they took the prasadam and then they took it to their head. And then they ate it. Because prasadam is, it's remnants, either flowers or food that Krishna has taken. So it's holy, it's sacred. And anything which is sacred, you put to your head. For, you know, it's like you honor it. This is, you know, not like you touch it to your feet and then eat it. No. Oh, this is, or like before we take prasadam, we say a prayer. We're honoring it. So they're taking it on their head. And then they ate the prasadam. And then Prabhupada turned to his devotees and said, did you see what they did? They were honoring that prasadam. Even if I give you a flower or a tulsi leaf, you would like that. So he said they were showing respect to the prasadam. So he was pointing it out. Did you see what they did? So, oh yeah, you learn if you are in India, there's some things you can learn just by watching. Now, when I stay at the homes of Indians, there's something that I learn. And it's quite amazing that if you stay in an Indian's home, just like this man did, they will, whatever you need, they will take care of. And of course, when I fly out, sometimes flights are early in the morning. And just the way my life is, we tend to do programs and get home late at night, even the night before I fly out early in the morning. That's just like, nobody thinks, maybe we shouldn't do it. Maybe, you know, so we're all, anyway, we're ecstatic. We wanna, even if they tell me we're not booking anything the night before you go, I'll tell them to book it. But anyway, so I've noticed these are working people. They have jobs. We get back like late at night. You know, I go to bed like 10:30. We have to get up like 2, leave for the airport like 3, whatever. This just happened in Australia, actually. We did a late night program. I stayed with devotees and we had to go early to the airport. They will always make prasadam, breakfast, and a meal for me. And I'm thinking, when did you have time to make it? Because I didn't go to bed till 11 and I got up like 3 o'clock to get ready. That means you probably got up at 1:30 or 2, or else you stayed up till 12 or 1. this is 100%. If I stay at the home of an Indian who's like under 30, maybe not, they lost the culture, but if they're over 30, and this is like everywhere I go, I'm like, and they're working the next day. Like, okay, this is culture. This is how you take care of guests. You make that sacrifice. Yeah, if it's your guru, of course, but I'm not the guru of most of these people, or at least the people I'm talking about. Another funny story about the right hand, which looks like my left hand to you. Does it? Does that look like my left hand? No? No. It looks, to me, it looks backwards. Okay, it's not backwards. I have a godbrother who, I think the first time I went to India, we went together, and he's left-handed. So, if you're okay, I'll tell you another story first. In India, as I was saying, the right hand. So this is a problem if you're left-handed, because you should only touch and eat prasadam with your right hand. And you go to England, they have the knife and fork and two hands, and bread in the left hand. And, that's like their culture, or whatever your culture is, right? I don't know. But every time I go to England, I see they have like something in their left hand and eat a knife and fork or whatever, like that. So Prabhupada said, in India, it's not considered proper to touch prasadam with your left hand. Because as I said, the left hand, according to Brahminical culture, is considered impure. And they're looking at all of you as Brahmins. So if you touch the prasadam with your left hand, they're going to think you're not actually Brahmins, and your guru is not training you. You're just, you're false. You're not the real thing. So Prabhupada said, just do not touch prasadam with your left hand, only with your right hand. Otherwise, people will think you're not properly cultured according to their standard. And devotees couldn't do it. So then Prabhupada said, sit on your left hand. He said, if you can't do it, sit on your left hand. So obviously, if you're sitting on your left hand, you're not going to use it. But here's my story. This is common in Indian culture. So my left-handed godbrother was on the street, and it was summer, or it was April in Calcutta. If you like to sweat, go to Calcutta in April, because you'll sweat a lot. So that's what we were doing. And obviously, if you sweat, you need to drink, just like I need to drink something. Right? I haven't drank anything yet. Thank you, Krishna, for reminding me to drink my mineral water. Please excuse me for a moment. You can all drink something also. You should drink a lot of water, right? And my doctor said, we are all deficient in minerals, so get some minerals and put it in your water. He did a test and he said, you are mineral anemic. Wow. If you drink water, it's good for your brain, right? Isn't it? If you have a brain left, yeah, hopefully you do. Some of us, have done so many horrible things. We wonder if we have the brain still function, if it's even there. Oh, did you know? Did you know there are people who don't have brains? Did you know that? And they function pretty normally like everyone else. But if you do an MRI, there's just like water in their head, something, but they function. Did you know that? Yeah, it proves that it's not the brain, it's the mind. Isn't that interesting? It's, I don't know, encephalitis or whatever it's called, or it sounds like encephalitis. Anyway, so it's Calcutta in April. As I say, if you like hot weather and you like sweating, and it's a good place to go. And if you want to lose weight, just drink the tap water. That's a great weight reduction program. You just have to be near a toilet. So we were sweating and losing weight and all of that. I lost so much weight the first time I went to India. Yeah. Did I tell you how much I weighed when I came back? You'll have to calculate this in kilograms if you think in kilograms, but I weighed 122 pounds when I came back from India. That's like what, 58 kgs or 55 or something, you know. Anyway, so he was drinking on the street, bought something, 55, I weighed 55 kgs when I came back from India. Can you believe it? You almost couldn't see me when I was standing sideways. Yeah. So he was drinking on the street. And as soon as he started, someone walked by and went like this. It tapped him on the left arm and said, no, 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 no. Just an average anybody. It wasn't, some royalty, it wasn't some Brahmin. It was just some guy said, no, 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 not the left hand, not the right hand. They wouldn't even let him drink out of his left hand. Isn't that funny? Hare Krishna. So, as you know, you were all invited to come to India for our retreat. We're going to do every year. It's going to be an annual event the last week of February, unless we decide to change it in the future. But this year, the last week of February, you're all invited, and you all get to meet one another, and we can also talk about our activities in different parts of the world and connect and help one another. But as I was saying, Prabhupada wanted devotees to go to India and learn that culture. Oh, there's another thing. I have to tell you a few other things you'll see in India that is so amazing. First time I went to India, one of the things I noticed most was how much devotion the people had. So if you go into a temple and you see the deities, you go into a temple, you see the deities and you see the deities. But when I was in India, I wasn't looking at the deities. I was looking at the people looking at the deities because they were looking with so much devotion. I was so moved by the devotion. Sometimes they'd just be staring at the deities 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6, like that. But you look at their face, there was so much bhakti. Sometimes they'd be crying, they'd be praying. And I noticed that they were very fixed on the deities, like they weren't, you could see their eyes weren't wavering and their mind wasn't wavering. And I'd never seen that before. And things like that impregnate our hearts. So that it's not just learning something. Oh, I saw that, I learned I shouldn't touch food with my left hand. No, this actually touches the heart. You see that bhakti. So, and the spontaneity of their love for Krishna was like, you can't have that spontaneity unless you've been raised in a family of devotees that goes back generations. So it's in your blood. And then you get an idea, oh, this is what bhakti means. This is what devotion means. And it also builds faith because for them, it wasn't a conversion. It wasn't something they had to believe. It was, they were born with it. It's in their blood. And so you can see it live, living color. Yeah, there's another thing similar that I saw to this story about the man who asked for forgiveness after serving the devotees hand and foot, is that you'll find in that culture, at least in Vaishnav culture, in India, Brahminical culture, you'll find that humility is valued very highly. And so people won't go around saying, I am so-and-so, I am great. Have you not heard my name? Do you not know who I am? That the mood is entirely opposite. It's always respect. I am no one special, but I want to respect you. I honor you. I respect you. That's very part of the culture. In the West, we don't have that as strongly as we should. we have more of a culture of, I'm strong and powerful and I did it. And I want to be recognized for that. Where, at least in the Vaishnav culture in India, you see this, it's always glorifying the Vaishnavas, always, what can I do to serve you? How can I help you? We were, Gundari was with us. Who else was any of you with us? Who else was with us? Alina, were you with us? On the morning walk, it was cold, a little cold in the morning, and I was actually hungry. And these village people were cooking chapatis. And as you know, I don't eat wheat, and wheat's my favorite food. So when I saw them cooking real chapatis on real fire with real wheat, I was like, I'm really hungry. I'd like to eat there. And because Vrindavan is Vrindavan, the people understood that and they invited us in to eat. They were making curry sauce with these little vegetarian meatballs in it. And how many? There were like 12 of us on the walk, and they invited us in. They fed all of us. Like they were cooking for themselves, and they fed all of us. So I think we ate like all their chapatis. Well, they kept making chapatis. We ate most of their soup. And so, like, how much did we learn from that? And how much were our hearts purified from that? Some of the devotees, after they went away, they were crying. They said, I'd never seen that before in my life, where someone who has nothing, literally, other than a little soup and chapati, that's all they have. They invite you in, and it was like, oh, the Maharaj is here, serve him. And I was like, no, everybody. We'll serve everybody. I don't know how many there were. Probably at least 8 of us, right? 8 or 10, more or less. And they served everyone till we were fully satisfied. It was a little cold that morning. It was nice. I don't know if you were hungry, Gandhari, but I was hungry. I was hungry. Yeah, I guess everybody was hungry. Alina was hungry, yeah. Hi, Bhakti, were you there? Or you missed out? Were you on that walk? You must have been there, no? So, yeah. How much you can learn from that? Like, they have nothing. They want to give everything, service to the Vaishnavas, it's Vrindavan. And I just had the desire. I was just hungry. And they said, come, we want to feed you. Like, literally about 10 seconds after I said it would be nice to take prasadam here. In my mind, I was thinking, oh, what's for breakfast? When I was looking at them cooking, and it was like they heard it, so this is why Prabhupada wanted to take devotees to India, to learn, to just see these things, to have these experiences. That this is Vaishnav culture, this is Brahminical culture. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things to learn. Okay, so we're going to continue reading. That was just, that was side points. He looks lovingly at his small band of youths and gives them final instructions. I will always be thinking of you. You all go on with your service, read my books, chant Hare Krishna, and pray to Lord Nrsingadev. I will surely come back after some time. I was reading this last 2 nights ago with my wife, and I said, this sounds like Krishna when he left Vrindavan. He was saying, I will come back tonight, maybe tomorrow. Maybe I'll come back in a week, maybe a little longer. Krishna made a promise, and 97 years later, he finally came back. He was gone. So I was like, is this a promise? It sounds like Krishna, It means Prabhupada wanted to come back. So surely I will come back. And what's beautiful when all the devotees are missing Prabhupada. And what's beautiful is Prabhupada is saying, I'll be thinking of all of you. In other words, I will be missing you. Don't just think you're missing me and I'm transcendental. Nothing affects me. My heart is, unmoved by any sentiment. No, Prabhupada's saying, I will miss all of you. I think we can safely say that Prabhupada's disciples were more dear to him than his own children. Because his children didn't really follow what he did, didn't really help him. They weren't really practicing devotees. And he had so many new children who were so dedicated. So he was very attached to them, to say the least. I will always be thinking of you, Prabhupada says. Then he goes on to say, and this is very important, don't think I am not with you. I never feel separation from my Guru Maharaj. He is always with me. Simply by executing his order, the spiritual master remains with the disciple always. So Prabhupada is giving his own example. So it's not like, don't feel separation. That's easy to say. And then Prabhupada goes. But he uses his own example that I am always feeling the presence of my spiritual master by executing the instructions he's given me. I always feel close to him. So Prabhupada's trying to assure the devotees that even though I'm going, if you continue with the mission, sharing Krishna consciousness, following bhakti and following the processes, then you will not feel separation. The spiritual master is always with Krishna, and Krishna is in the heart of everyone. In that way, the spiritual master is always in touch with his disciples. I'll read that again because that was kind of like a mathematical calculation that you might have missed. Okay, but spiritual master is always with Krishna. Krishna is in the heart of everyone. In that way, the spiritual master is always in touch with his disciples. Guru is with Krishna. Krishna is in your heart. The Guru is in touch with Krishna in your heart. He somehow knows and feels what's going on with you. Simply by executing his order. No. Sorry. In this way, the spiritual master is always in touch with his disciples. He can be omniscient and omnipresent because he is always close to Krishna, who is present everywhere and in full knowledge of every part of his creation. Now, someone might say, but I thought Prabhupada said he's not omniscient. Prabhupada did say that. So this sounds to be a contradiction. But one of the things we can say when Prabhupada was asked, do you know everything? He said, I know everything Krishna needs me to know, or I know everything I need to know. So Krishna can reveal everything to the spiritual master. So he can know what's in the heart of the disciple. And definitely, because Prabhupada felt separation from his guru, he knows what separation is. He knows what it is. So, and from reading Prabhupada's letters, we understand that he did know what was in the heart of the devotees. So Krishna is with him, Krishna is in our heart, we're all together. Prabhupada wanted us to understand that. Tears come unbidden, no matter how hard Govinda tries to hold them back. Jadharani hangs her head down, hiding her tears. Swamiji smiles at them and says in a fatherly way, of course, Ladies have soft hearts. So it is natural they will shed tears. Their hearts are very soft because they are meant to be mothers. He smiles again. But don't ever think I am not with you. He addresses each of them. Our relationship is eternal, and the purest love is the love between guru and disciple. That love is transcendental and eternal. So don't ever think I am away from you. I will never leave you. So sometimes devotees would say, Prabhupada, is this relationship eternal? He would say, yeah. We'll always be together. Not in the physical form, of course, is different. But he would always say that this relationship is eternal. Wow. If the relationship is eternal, then it's eternal. That's good news, right? Even if you kind of think you've lost it, it's still there. It's always there, right? Prabhupada's not going anywhere. He's always there. Hare Krishna. So don't ever think I am away from you. I will never leave you. The loudspeakers announce, New Delhi now boarding at gate 22. Ding. The time has come. Slowly, sadly, the group follows Swamiji to the boarding gate. They stop for a minute and someone takes a picture of the Swami and his disciples. A picture that will become, somebody's signing in on my account. Oh, excuse me. A picture of the Swamiji and his disciples, a picture that will become a treasure. Jadharani is weeping, barely able to stand. Govinda Dasi is focused on Swamiji, fighting back the tears that blind her vision. Satsvarup looks as if his heart will break. Rupanuga looks pained, and Brahmananda's eyes are glistening with tears. Swamiji turns to his grieving children and says, Hare Krishna. Go on chanting Hare Krishna. He raises his right hand in blessing, then flashes one last sunshine smile and disappears through the doorway. Kirtanananda follows as they board the jet bound for India. So this is before 9/11, so this is right at the gate. And in the airports in those days, they had big windows so you could see the plane take off. And whenever Prabhupada would leave, and I think maybe for many people, you would just stand and watch the plane take off and just stand there until you could no longer see the plane, and then you would go back home. So
but your video is off. We cannot see you.
Okay. Darshan is granted. You did not have the eyes to see me for a moment. Granted, I haven't granted you vision. Hare Krishna. So, and Kirtanananda, one of the first disciples, maybe the first initiated, he's going with Srila Prabhupada to India, and Prabhupada's going to give him sannyas in India. The devotees rush to the large windows that line the airport walls. They press their faces against the glass, hoping to get one last glimpse of their Swamiji. Some rush upstairs to the outdoor deck. They had these, in the old days in airports, they had decks outside, so you could go stand outside and watch the plane take off. Did you know that? Isn't that interesting? So your loved one is taking off and you want to be like right there. And so you're on the deck above the tarmac, and you can watch the plane take off, and just, your heart's going with the plane. You kind of like lose your heart, and then you have to go home without that person. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Just and a little bit of an idea of how the devotee feels separation from Krishna. Some rush upstairs to the outdoor deck. The night is dark and rain begins to fall. Govinda Dasi and Brahmananda run out onto the upper deck, hardly noticing the rain. So it's raining and they're outside. Brahmananda turns to Govinda Dasi, tears streaming down his face. The Swami's plain, well, Brahmananda is amazing. He was one of the first devotees and one of Prabhupada's right-hand man. And if you ever listen to his memories of Prabhupada, it's always full of emotion and he's always crying. He had so much affection for Prabhupada, so much bhakti, so much devotion. It's so beautiful to listen to him speak about Srila Prabhupada, because he's always, it's just, yeah. He's special. His talking about Srila Prabhupada is quite special. The Swami's plane roars and the smell of jet fumes permeates the damp night air. Engines whine and whir. I didn't know that was a word. Engines whine and whir as the plane moves forward. Then it takes off into the night, becoming a tiny speck as they strain to see. They feel as if their hearts are leaving with the plane. Then he is gone. Govinda Dasi breathes softly, tears mixing with the gentle rain. She says to Brahmananda, the raindrops are like the gopis' tears. We are having our first glimpse of separation. They say it is bittersweet love, she says quietly. But inside she feels it's just bitter. Sweet is having Swamiji here with us. I want him to come back to us as soon as possible, all healthy and strong. So this is, maybe this is how you feel sometimes. It's, we're trying to understand the sweetness that one can experience in separation, but for many of us, it's just bitter. We say bittersweet, we just get the bitter without the sweet. And sometimes I was thinking maybe I should stop traveling, because then there'll be no separation. I mean, there'll be no coming and going. Because whenever I go, it's like, oh, this is hard, don't go. I said, okay, well, I won't come next time, then I won't have to go. Solve the problem, right? Yeah. But obviously, this guru and disciple can't always be together physically. Or not just guru and disciple, but our favorite devotees, we can't always be with them. So Prabhupada's trying to teach us that through remembering them, through serving them, through following their instructions, we actually live together, and it removes that bitterness and that sweetness that we had in our presence is somewhat, or the pain is somewhat removed. Sometimes I hear pastimes of Srila Prabhupada, and I was there, so it's just bringing all my memories back. And sometimes I just feel like it's painful. It's actually, sometimes I don't want to hear those pastimes, because it reminds me of how sweet it was, and it's painful because it's not going to happen that way ever again. But I think that pain is just bringing us closer, helping us become more attached. That's what it's supposed to do, that we want that association more. And if you want Prabhupada's association, you want the association of your spiritual master, go back to Godhead. It will be there eternally. And, you know, we don't like separation from the people we love. But if we all go back to Godhead, all the people we love will be there forever. And so there won't be separation. And so that's the only solution to separation, is to go back to Krishna. Right? So if you don't like separation, then you can think, okay, there's so many things in this world we don't like. And when we're confronted with the things we don't like, we should think, okay, I don't like this. This problem does not exist in the spiritual world. Therefore, I should make efforts to reconnect with Krishna in the spiritual world. That would be the only thing that's going to relieve this anxiety. And that's how I suggest we think whenever there's a difficulty in this world. We think, but this difficulty does not exist with Krishna in the spiritual world. It only exists here on this plane. And if I go back to Krishna, I won't have to deal with this. And so this difficulty can be an impetus to reconnect with Krishna. You know, it's like, it's the hottest time of year in India right now. So let's say I fly to India, and as soon as I get there, when I get off the plane, if I get on the tarmac, basically it will feel like a heater is blowing hot air on my face, right? Especially, I don't know where you are, Abhinav. You're nodding, but where Hari Bhakti is, it'll be a heater blowing dirty air in your face. Both things, right? So it feels like it's so hot, it feels like a hot heater, and then you'll get off the plane and you'll start saying, oh, it's so hot. And then you'll go through the airport, it's cool. And then you go outside and you'll start saying, it's so hot. And then you get in the car, turn on the AC, turn on the AC not working. Ah! Get me another car, you know, and you're sitting in the car sweating and you go, it's so hot, I can't take it. It's so hot. I can't believe how hot it is. And of course, if you came to India because you made your own decision, then like, why are you complaining? Like, you know, you're complaining it's hot in India and you decided to come in May. Like, okay, you know, like, don't complain. That was your decision. So I think we could think of life that way. You know, we chose to come here. We chose this body and we have this karma. So now we're complaining about it and say, well, you know, you did choose this. So really, if you don't like it, there is another place you could go. And so let it be an impetus. Right? Correct? Okay. Govinda Dasi's heart aches with the sadness of separation. She doesn't want Swamiji to leave, yet she wants him to get well. He's got to go to get well. Now she must learn to live in Krishna consciousness without the Swami's constant presence. He has told them that he never feels he is separated from his Guru Maharaj. Govinda Dasi knows that she must take this lesson to heart and apply it if she is to survive and flourish in spiritual life. She prays to Krishna that she will learn to live with Swamiji in the eternal present, that she will live with him forever in a place of sandalwood and roses. Hare Krishna. Okay, we have time for questions or comments. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what is going on in your mind or heart right now. I don't think I said it. I was feeling like we didn't really say anything that would stimulate questions because not so much of a topic for questions, but I think this kind of summarizes everything we've talked about over the last, I don't know, this must be like the 10th class we had on this topic, and I think it kind of summarizes everything we've spoken about. And so, one thing we can say is that these things Prabhupada's saying about separation, of course, are his own realization. I mean, it's also in our books, in the scripture. It's also Prabhupada's realization with his own spiritual master. And these are things we have to realize. They're not theoretical. We have to realize through service. And so when we come together with our guru, with senior devotees, we become inspired with those we love. And then we take that inspiration with us and we honor it, and then we apply it, we use it. And this is what I should be doing with that association I've got. I should be nourished by it, take it with me. And so when I take that nourishment with me, then I'm kind of taking the people with me who gave me that nourishment. So I feel a love and connection to them for giving me that nourishment. And that's how it works. And in that way, I have a connection. It's a different kind of connection than the personal connection. The personal connection, it's dynamic, it's moving, it's changing, it's pushing me, it can force me, a devotee can force you just by their kind words, force you to move forward. But it's a different kind of connection, but it's still a connection with that person through service and instruction. That's the idea. Hare Krishna. Kavita says, when we go to see our spiritual master, but we couldn't get his association, feel sad. What should we do at that time? Cry or make an appointment next time? Oh, you're a woman. Well, you have even more of a handicap, huh? When we go to see our spiritual master, but we couldn't get his association, feel sad. Yeah, well, you got his association from a distance. Or what do you mean? He wasn't there? You came to see him? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Bad planning. We had no choice, right? One time a devotee said to Prabhupada, he said, I want to stay by your lotus feet all the time. Prabhupada said, that's impossible. My lotus feet always move. They're moving around the world, so you can't. The answer to your question is try again. Come to sadhusanga. Everyone's going to be there. You're going to be there, right? Yeah. Okay, everyone will be at some. Vaishnava culture helps us to develop respect for all living entities. Yeah. And what you find in Vaishnava culture is that even the thing about culture, which is so beautiful, is that oh, he was there but left from Gita Nagari. Oh, okay. You missed it. Okay. So the thing about etiquette is the nature of etiquette is that we're meant to act with that etiquette at all times and all places, even if in my heart I don't feel it. Like I may not feel like offering respect to a devotee. Maybe the devotee's a senior devotee, but for some reason I don't feel like offering respect, but it's part of the culture to offer respect to the seniors, so I will offer my respect. And then that's the culture. So that's why culture is important, because culture always causes us to act. Culture always causes us to act in a proper way. Because we may not always feel like acting in a proper way, right? Oh, there's so-and-so, I don't like him. No, but he's a senior, I should respect. I have to, at least the etiquette of respect must be there. So I show it. So that's good. It seems It seems that in Krishna consciousness, it refers to the past because we always remember the Vaishnavas, how we can avoid becoming melancholic or nostalgic when using emotions to nurture our bhakti. Because, well, when Srila Prabhupada translated the Nectar of Devotion, the Nectar of Devotion is written by Srila Rupa Goswami, and Prabhupada said, by reading this book, you will be personally associating with Rupa Goswami. So, although Rupa Goswami lived 500 years ago, Prabhupada never presented Rupa Goswami as a historical figure in the sense that you could only get his association 500 years ago. So because the context of association is association through instruction and service, then you, in a sense, could gain the association of any great devotee who lived at any time in history, right? Through hearing their instruction. I have learned a lot about chanting the holy name from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and those of you who come with me in the morning walks in Mayapur, which we'll do again if you come to India this time. I think we'll go to Mayapur first. We always go to the home of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and over the years I developed an attraction for Bhaktivinoda Thakur because I've learned so much about the holy name from him. It's one of the major sources that I used in developing my workshops on the holy name. So, I never met him, at least not in this life. And how could I even know if I met him in any life? But I feel a connection because his instructions are relevant to my service and to my attempt to improve my japa. So anyone can feel close to anybody if we study their lives and instructions and resonate with their lives and instructions and example, service. So don't think of them as historical. Think of them as they're as present as you make them present in your life. They are as present as you can allow them to come into your heart, because once they come into your heart, they're there, and that's in the present. So Talia, let them in. I think that's a good point, isn't it? In Buddhism, we talk about being in the present moment, right? So what's in the present moment? Whatever is in your mind and in your heart right now is there in the present moment, isn't it? The psychological reality of trauma means that the past is in the present moment. We're still affected by it, although it happened in the past. So we can bring the past to the present. You ever think of the past and you have emotional experiences based on what happened in the past? So now the past is in the present. You're having a present emotional experience by remembering a past experience. And so that same emotion you had in the past, maybe you're having now. So by hearing the pastimes of devotees from the past, we experience something, and that experience is in the present. So we are therefore presently associating with them in some way. Presently, the emotions connected to hearing their stories and their instructions are present within us. So they are present. What else could it be? You see that with those who cultivate a deeper understanding of Prabhupada and a closer relationship, even though they've never met him, they feel like it. Like I told that story before. Here's another story that I want to tell again. And you will, if you've heard it before, you will remember that you forgot it. There was an experiment, and they showed pictures of 10 different 10 different things, 10 different items. They ask the people, how many can you remember? And they'll remember like 4 or 5. And then the teacher says, you actually remember all of them. And they say, no, I don't. He said, I can prove it. So then he'll flash pictures of like 25 items and ask, which of these 25, which are the 10 of these 25 that we showed you before? And you could pick out those 10. Isn't that interesting? So I couldn't pick out the 10 off the top of my head, but if you show me 20 pictures, I could show you the 10 that you showed me before. So it's actually in your memory. So sometimes like we hear a story and we forget, and then when it's told again, we go, oh yeah, I remember that story, but you actually forgot it, but you didn't forget it, but you had to, the memory had to be sparked. So this is a beautiful story. Many of you have heard it, and so you're going to be able to relish it again. This devotee is editing a film on Prabhupada called Acharya, and there are several parts of this film, so it's hours and hours. Maybe, I don't know exactly what he did. He may have just been copying or editing, but he's watching his services. He's watching Prabhupada on video, editing it. Day in, day out, that's his service, whatever, 7 hours a day, that's what he does. And then on the weekends, he goes out on Sankirtan, and I believe he was distributing Prabhupada Lilamrita, maybe, but that's not necessary because he's distributing a book and he's telling a person about Prabhupada, who is the author of the book, or if it's his biography, who the book is about. And he's glorifying him and telling him, and to the person who's talking to, it sounded like this devotee had met Prabhupada, the way he was describing it. He did this, he did that. When you hear his instructions, you feel this way. And, so the person's like, oh, so when did you meet him? And the devotee had never actually thought that he never met Prabhupada. It actually caught him off guard. It actually caught him off guard. He said, oh, actually, I never met him. This devotee, isn't that interesting? He didn't consciously realize that he never met Prabhupada until he was asked, when did you meet him? He said, well, actually, I never did. Because he felt being so close to Prabhupada, watching those videos and serving him, he felt that he met Prabhupada. So the past is in the present, according to you, your feeling. One other example we can give, which I've given before, I never tire giving this example because I think it's one of the greatest examples. Was it 1923 or 1922? I forget. Keep going back and forth. I think it was 1922 is when Prabhupada first was instructed by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his spiritual master, to spread the message in the English language, and the connotation was also English-speaking world. It's a lot more, at that time, English was not a language that was known by many Indians. The connotation was outside of India. And of course, we know Prabhupada finally did that, fully dedicated himself to do that in 1965. And so the only thing that we can understand from this is that instruction never lost its power. It was as if he got it yesterday. Prabhupada left India August 1965 as if that instruction was given a few days ago, a week ago, and he just had to prepare and leave. Right? I think that's super important to meditate on. The instructions are as alive. The instructions are always alive, no matter when they're given, but they may not be alive in our hearts, but potentially they can be, always, no matter how long ago they were given. Okay? So Does the spiritual master live in your heart? Do the great devotees live in your heart? Only you can ask that question, but the answer is potentially yes, they can. And they will, by following instructions. Chaitanya Dasi says, I always feel that in order to understand Srila Prabhupada's books, people first have to get to know Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, for many devotees, they feel that way. Many devotees are convinced of that. I also feel that in many ways, but I would say at least what I would say, at the very least, that there are things we can misunderstand. If we don't know the background, why is Prabhupada saying that? Because some things, of course, are just shastric. There is no, he's just explaining exactly what the Shastra means. But in his purports, then he may be explaining circumstances that relate to that verse, and he wants to contextualize it within the present context. And it's often obvious, but often it may not be. And so in that case, definitely we can misunderstand why he's saying something. No. And then later, sometimes as older devotees, we'll find out, oh no, he didn't. I thought he meant this, but he didn't. He meant something else. And that is just a challenge, a natural challenge. And if you read Prabhupada's biographies, you will get lots of context. And it is like you say, it will make it easier to understand him if we know more about how he applied Krishna consciousness, because it gives you ways to think of more ways to think about it, understanding the ways he thought about it. Which, as I was saying in Vrindavan, is extremely important because every successive generation has to represent Prabhupada. And therefore, to represent him, ideally, you should read everything you possibly can get your hands on about him, about his life, all the biographies, so that you can better represent him. In every biography, you will hear things you didn't know. And sometimes Prabhupada says things which are so apparently contrary to what you would have imagined he would have said in that context. And it's good to know, oh, in this context, he actually said this. And as we know, he would say things which would be useful for an individual and sometimes contradictory with different people. It's good to know. So I agree. Not that you can't understand everything, but many things will be difficult to clearly and completely understand without having the context of, as much context as possible, of Prabhupada's own life. And for us, as we spread Krishna consciousness, we represent Prabhupada and his teachings and his example. So the more we know, the more we can represent, right? You are right, again. Okay, we're waiting for Gormani. The golden jewel to come and save us. Or should we just begin japa now? There's no more questions. And she'll want to come on and do a guided meditation that will disrupt things.